Well, speaking of the Department of Government Efficiency, joining us on the line is Luke Rosiak. He's an investigative reporter for the Daily Wire and our brand new Doge reporter over at the White House. Luke, thanks so much for joining the program.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
So, Luke, let's talk about your recent article about how sort of the groundwork was set for Doge. Democrats are trying to claim over and over that something unprecedented is being done with the Department of Government Efficiency, that you have a bunch of unelected people who are worming their way into government and making cuts. What's the actual origin of the powers that pre-existed Doge?
It's a pretty funny story. Democrats basically spent 10 years building the biggest rake you've ever seen and then stomped on it. So it kind of starts in 2014. Obama creates something called the U.S. Digital Service that is designed to hire people from Silicon Valley and exempt them from many of the federal rules. And then through the first Trump administration, they convinced Trump that these are civil servants that should be left alone to be independent. And they use that status to basically completely undermine him, doing completely ridiculous things, leftist activism from within the Trump executive office of the president. And then Biden comes in, and he dispenses with the pretense of nonpartisanship, and he just blatantly makes it subject to the power of a political appointee. So he basically loads a gun, and then they hand it to Elon Musk. So this is definitely one of the greatest cell phones of all time. And then on top of that, just the things that they were doing inside of the Trump U.S. Digital Service, kind of without his knowledge but right underneath his nose, are truly shocking. They were hiring transgender activists. They were hiring multiple people from porn websites, if you can believe it. They had somebody called a kink-aware professional on staff. And this is all happening in Trump's payroll. They're going to DEI conferences and sending an entire panel of lesbians who work there. They hired somebody from a gender studies department who then sent an email to staff in the executive office of the president in Trump's presidency, lecturing them about white cis privilege and toxic masculinity. So basically, Trump was very kind to these people. He wanted to give them space to operate as civil servants, and they kind of took his kindness as weakness. So there's a lot of lessons here, but I think the betrayal that USDS kind of committed in Trump's first term is definitely informing the way that he's going to come in and look at how Biden used and Trump and Obama used these agencies in a more partisan way, and naturally say it only seems fair to do the same thing. And so he's bringing in people like, so I'll leave it there on that part, but there's so many examples I could go on and on about basically how they operated a left-wing activism outfit in Trump's White House and basically set up this whole thing. And now what Elon Musk is doing with it is not all that dissimilar from how Barack Obama set it up in 2014.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that I find so hilarious about the entire Democratic take on Doge. What they're very upset about is the idea that a quote-unquote unelected bureaucrat who is unaccountable to, say, the legislative branch is now going through their giant unelected bureaucracy that they created as essentially a permanent taxpayer money-funded scam to send cash out the door to a variety of their own friends in sort of blue non-governmental organizations across the world. They set up essentially a permanent funding pipeline from places like USAID to all of their friends, run by all of their friends. And now they're upset that somebody is coming in and cutting all of that, and they're claiming that somehow this is opposition to the American people. Well, actually, no, you guys, as you say, set up the rake, and now you've stepped on it.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that really threatens Elon, it really makes Democrats scared of Elon, is that he's an outsider. And I think about even this role that, where the Daily Wire is now naming me the government efficiency reporter. In some ways, I've been around Washington for a while. My original mentor back in the day was Tom Coburn, a senator who was called Dr. No because he basically called out spending and shut down so much wasteful spending. And he actually created the website usaspending.gov for exactly the kind of thing we're now seeing. But nobody really looked at it for about 15 years. It was all out there, but nobody was really using it. And now what we have is, I just feel like a kid waking up on Christmas morning because people are suddenly using this website for exactly what they wanted them to. I almost wish Tom Coburn was still alive to see it. He would be so excited. But, some of the things they're finding as outsiders, we've kind of known about those of us who have followed Washington for years. Some of it we knew about, but we just felt like we couldn't change. We didn't like it, but we just were jaded and pessimistic, and we were told that nothing could ever change. And what you have is these outsiders like Elon who are coming in with his merry band of 20-year-olds and are kind of waltzing into the parade and pointing at the emperor and saying, hey, why does that dude have no clothes? And those of us who have kind of been in the alphabet soup of DC, jargon for a long time, you're right. It doesn't have to be this way. So it's just incredible to see people using this USA spending, finding all the USAID stuff that you're mentioning, and there's so much more. Once in a while, these people who are just random people all over America who are exploring how taxpayers are spending their money, they're finding that bureaucrats spend your money in ways that they would never spend their own money. And once in a while, these new people that are poking around this data, they make mistakes because they don't know how government works. But most of the time, the fact that they don't know how government works is an incredible superpower. It lets them look at things with fresh eyes. And so where we may have had in the sort of old conservative movement a certain despondency and, sort of resignation, what they have is righteous indignation, and they have optimism. And we've never had those two things at once.
Well, that's Luke Rosiak, investigative reporter for The Daily Wire. He's following what Doge is doing on a daily basis. Luke, really appreciate the time and the insight.
Thank you, Ben.